Okay, we're recording. That was my big worry that I was going to forget to do that. So feel free to keep typing, but let's just have a quick look at our table. So Lillian, you seem to have been going to everything and everything as you normally do. Lots of VI stuff. How's that all going?
I haven't even finished typing, but yes, a lot of VI stuff. It's all been really good. I worked hard with the maths department to create a reasonable adjustment for our blind student who was taking 2 maths exams, one of which was quantum and continuous dynamics. I think that the other one was classical dynamics. Anyway, they were all very, very complex, maths in the first place. But yeah, the accommodations went really well and the student did really well in the assessment. But for a blind student, doing something that's so kind of abstract, even for sighted students, is amazing. So that was really, really good. And the other highlight, of course, is the enhancing inclusion for neurodivergent students in maths and stats. I think I was the only non-maths person in there. I sat next to Jonathan Fine to feel a little bit more supported. It was a very good event indeed. And I've written a blog post about it. So there's a link in there as well with some very useful tips, which I hope to run a kind of similar event in-house. I'll shut up now.
Excellent. Thank you, Lillian. And then we have Christian, new version of Numbas. I've heard lots of people be quite excited about this. Do you want to just say a couple of minutes about what changes you've made?
Yeah, okay. So I think I've probably mentioned in previous meetings that I was working on this over the last year, that I rewrote the user interface from scratch in Numbers to make it more accessible. So chucked out a load of old markup, it's more screen reader friendly, but also there's a lot of visual options now as well. So you can not just change font and font size and weight and all that, but you can change all of the colors in the interface. So it does quite well at matching both whether you want light or dark for text, things like that, but matching the contrast level that you pick, because we know that some people need very high contrast level, some need lower contrast, like lower visual stress. So it goes on the contrast between the text and the background color that you pick to pick all the rest of them. So yeah, that was quite a lot of work. And now I'm spending the first few weeks of term dealing with non-accessibility stuff, just the usual.
We all get swept up in the usual Good, thank you, Christian. That's I yesterday was having a conversation with someone who was talking about new number stuff. So yeah, that's definitely people waiting on that in an excited way. Chris, welcome. Just starting on maths in Moodle, and lots of general digital accessibility. I think there are probably quite a few people in that boat. So welcome. Is there
Thank you.
I might is there anything you particularly want to say, or
Not particularly, no, not right now. But yeah, just to say, we've been trying to do this for a long time, but just haven't found enough time to do it seriously and get engagement from our teachers as well.
I think
we need them to be interested.
Yep, I think that's a hard thing, but something we will actually come back to hopefully later today in this meeting.
Right.
Matthew, again, new person. So hello, welcome to the meetings. You've been working on a lot. Do you want to maybe just sum up some of that? Because I think that'd be of general interest.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Matthew Deeprose. Please call me Matt from the University of Southampton. I'm an Accessible Solutions Architect. You might have seen me last year running the Anthology Ally user group. About summer last year, I discovered vibe coding with Claude, and started making those accessibility tools that no one was making. I've made a whole bundle by now, and this year I decided I was going to try and start working on something more complex and high stakes. So I started working on an accessible wrapper for the Open Router front end, where you can access like 350 different LLMs using a single API key, and working out how you could get it to kind of generate diagrams, graphs, and so on in terms of artifacts, and then looking at how you could make those as accessible as possible. So part of that, I looked at creating like a way of using the chart.js graphing engine, which is pretty, it's very simple what you can do with it, but color vision deficiency friendly graphs with algorithmically generated descriptions. So it will describe the graph as well as create it, which I can show you later. Then my colleague Luke Searle, I didn't see if he's on the call or not. He was showing me Pandoc, the command line version. And I Googled and found, there's a WebAssembly version. I wonder if I could do something with that, because all of the HTML to, or LaTeX to HTML tools that I've seen so far either require command line server or server infrastructure. And what I'm finding around the accessibility community is the people that are often doing the work come from lots of different backgrounds: teaching, assistive technology, humanities, STEM, and so on. So I was looking for something, could we make something web-based, just point and click, drop LaTeX, get accessible HTML with MathJax out, which I've started playing with. And most recently, I've been looking at MathPix. I've been writing a tool, which is kind of a wrapper for the MathPix API. I'm slowly going through the documentation, and I've got quite a bit working so far, quite a bit more to do, but I've already got a version up. So if you had an API key, you can plug it in and test it if you like. I'm happy to show more later. Thanks for listening. Back to you, Cordelia.
Oh, thank you. That's I think there's lots there for us to kind of unpick, and it might be good to see some of that later on. Daniel, you changed university without changing university.
Yeah, they in their infinite wisdom, they decided that the Central in University of Central Lancashire was surplus to requirements, and University of Lancashire would be in no way confusing with the University of Lancaster, and changed it. But there we go.
There we go, indeed.
But yeah, otherwise I've been wanting to push the MathJax in Blackboard side of things, but unfortunately they've not really advanced it anywhere from, well, when we last met in the summer, and so it's still quite limited. As we discussed in the summer, they seem to have made it more limited than was absolutely necessary. But hopefully some of the other bits will come into play before Christmas. I think the big one that they're worrying about is the context menu. So that might be later on down the line. Then I did have a play with some screen readers earlier this week. I even tried putting some formula in Word using the Word interface and trying the Word inbuilt screen reader, and it failed miserably. And one thing I tried confused some math symbols with a smiley face emoji. So state of the art.
Well, maths does put a smile on many people's faces. So
just to pick on the comment that has been put in, yes, maths in PDF is not accessible unless they're output using the latest LaTeX. I have been trying that with the latest LaTeX, and I'm still looking for so the Adobe, for example, failed miserably on the latest LaTeX for me. So if somebody's got something that works on the latest LaTeX, I'd be interested to hear.
there was, I'm trying to remember
we
which.
We could probably show something later.
Brilliant, thank you.
There's various members of the LaTeX team on the school.
Brilliant. Josh, you've been moving stuff to Quarto. So I might skip that and come back to it when we talk about Quarto in a bit. unless you have anything pressing else to add.
No, that sounds good. Yeah.
And then Ashley's been writing a university guide for digital accessibility. Good. Yes, let's move away from Microsoft Equation Editor, particularly for kind of heavy duty maths. How have you been finding that? Is there anything else you want to add for that, or?
I don't really have anything to add. I just need to kind of tell the department that this resource exists now.
Dissemination, the fun bit. Cool, thank you. Sharon has been looking at accessibility maths in Canvas.
Nothing on the order of what's going on with the other team members, so I defer my time.
Fair enough. Thank you. And then Andrew is using BookML. Yes, and again, we're talking about accessibility of images. Captions need to be written. Anything else to add, Andrew?
No, nothing at all. Thank you.
Fair enough. Rosary is developing. Oh, we're back to Quarto. Cool. Again, I might park that for Quarto discussion unless there's anything pressing. Vincenzo has been doing BookML updates and new manual, and MathJax 4. Excellent. Do you want to maybe? I know lots of people keenly await BookML updates too. Do you want to maybe just say a couple of things about those, Vincenzo?
Yes. So. So it's not very interesting stuff. Actually, I should say, I hope I'm not breaking anybody's workflow, but it's mostly update. If you're using Overleaf, so it should be easier to use. Well, it should be easier to understand what's happening when you make it run. That's one thing. There's going to be, so the documentation now explains certain things that were not. They were basically just you wouldn't know how to do them, like stupid stuff. Like if you want to split the pages by chapter instead of by section, now it's actually explained on the page. So if you didn't know how to do this, it can be done. There's an explanation. But the big thing is MathJax 4. MathJax 4 is being released. I don't know how many are aware. And it's actually much better than the version 3. It has, so the biggest thing is it does line breaking now. So if you have long formulas, the person reading can choose how MathJax is supposed to break the formulas. Like, do you want to have an overflow where you can just slide the formula so that it fits the screen, or it can just break the lines? Unfortunately, this is incompatible with certain things that DataCamL does, which is very annoying. So that's why I haven't sort of make it the default yet, but it will be at some point before December. I hope that's the biggest thing. LaTeXML is also doing big stuff, but I don't know when the new version is going to be released. So maybe we'll talk about this at the next meetings, because that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, I think that sounds like something that we'll probably bring up potentially before Christmas. So maybe the next meeting or so. There was a question: is MathJax what's used to display equations in BookML? Yes.
Yes. I mean, the equations are rendered in MathML, but because the browsers are completely inconsistent with how they render them, then there's MathJax on top of it.
Thank you, Vincenzo. David is doing Quarto templates. Lots of Quarto people here. Excellent. Good. I'm going to park a Quarto discussion. Steph is looking at accessibility updates to Janeway. How's that going? What's Janeway?
Sorry, I've been lurking for a while, and this is the first time I managed to actually turn up. Janeway is an open source publishing platform that's used for journals. I'm at Birkbeck. We do the development, but it's open source. People use it around the world. Not all of them tell us. I am the accessibility specialist on this. I've been here about 2 years, and it became apparent to me that our maths offering wasn't any worse than anyone else's, but I disliked it, if you see what I mean. So I'm kind of here to try and work out what's actually what people want and hope that we can start doing it. Because it seems to me that if you've got people studying maths, they also need to be able to consume the journal resources. And it'd be really nice to support that end of it as well. So that's my take on this. So we're in the process of doing a massive update to accessibility. So all I've been working on all summer has been the massive update, but that's across the board, not just in maths.
Excellent. Thank you for putting this out there. This definitely sounds like something that we could maybe have a longer discussion with at maybe in the next meeting, and then we can maybe
be really interesting. But I'm here to listen.
Yeah. So yeah, that sounds like something we can maybe again circle back to in the future. But yes, thank you for joining in. Eve is moved institutions, aren't we all? And implementing accessible maths resources. Unless you have anything else to add, I might.
Hello, hi. Nice to meet you all.
Hello. Pleased to, welcome to the meeting. David's been doing later stuff.
Yeah, so in incremental improvements vary. So I'm probably most people know that I'm the editor of MathML. So MathML Core, which is the MathML implementing browsers, is slowly winding its way through the standardization process. It's at candidate review state now. And MathML Full, which has the intent stuff for accessibility, we just spend hours discussing individual attributes and how to pronounce various weird and wonderful expressions. And LaTeX, we had a release of LaTeX Dev a week ago, and the full release will be in November. We have 2 releases a year, which is, again, there's a big project on getting tagged PDF output from LaTeX, and things get better each time. I mean, there's various improvements here and there. Someone put a comment in the table. Yes and no. So the question was whether you can get HTML out. I mean, tech structurally can't make HTML, but there's a standard. The PDF Association have a standard algorithm for deriving HTML from PDF, tagged PDF, and it's more or less implemented in NG PDF, which you can find on the web for free. So in theory, well, in practice, if you give your tagged PDF to NG PDF, you get an HTML file out. It's currently not as good as LaTeX ML or Tech4HT would make, but it's not bad, and it's a standard algorithm. It can get better, and it's quite good for accessibility. All the maths ends up as MathML. Well, of course, it's lovely. So yeah, long term, that may put pressure on the external converters from tech to HTML, or it may not. We'll see. Hard to predict the future. That's me.
Yeah, there's one point maybe you should mention, if I jump in here. We are also working currently on making presentations accessible, and that isn't by now out and actually working. So it's possible to use a replacement for Beamer that produces presentations that are accessible. It's not
LTX talk.
It's not a full replacement in terms of all the functionality of Beamer. Some things are implemented differently, but I was just able this week, in fact, to produce the presentation that I gave for the PDF Association on the accessibility stuff of mathematics and so, and present that as an accessible PDF presentation made from LaTeX.
That sounds like a beating a big want that's been around for ages. Lillian.
Can I just ask Frank if people have a current Beamer file will they just be able to kind of update that, or will they have to kind of start from scratch?
Yeah, I didn't say that explicitly. I was in a bit of a hurry to prepare the slides for that talk, so I used Beamer when I was giving the slides, and I converted that to the new version, and it was changes in 3 or 4 places. I mean, it's not automatic in all cases, depending on what you use. But I used things like overlays and so on and so forth, and they basically all work. I mean, we are trying to get as much of the good functionality in exactly the same interface. There are some things that we all want to do differently. Some things are, well, questionable in the way things Beamer is doing stuff. So not everything will work out of the box if you take an old file, but it's essentially not a very hard work to make an existing, say, course material starting from Beamer to turn it into using the new thing. And that's one of the reasons why we are doing this, because, I mean, this is done by Joseph, largely, who is a lecturer for chemists. And as you all know, a lot of requirements are around there to have all your lecture notes and so accessible. So if you want to use that, that's the goal, to make that possible. And it works.
In the current situation, it's focusing on the core code. So if your Beamer file has 1,000 lines of theme customization, choosing exactly your exact fonts, and then at the moment you need to like give up some things, but all the basic
I have to drop some stuff, yes.
But the basic Beamer functionality you'd expect with the angle brackets appear on slide 2 or whatever is all working. Have a try.
That's really good to know, and actually picks up on Kate's point, which is next on the list, who's been talking about accessibility with Beamer. So hopefully that's useful to you, Kate, too.
Yes. I'm not a mathematician or any expert in LaTeX whatsoever. So could you, I don't know, provide me some more information, or tell me how I can get our mathematicians to do what they need to do to use your new sort of.
I just put a link in the.
Thank you.
Just put a link in the chat. I mean, they shouldn't get it
fabulous.
from CTAN. It will be part of if you've got Tech Live or MICTAC, you'll have it locally already. But the documentation is there on that link.
Well, thank you so much. That might make my life a whole lot easier. So I'm very glad to have found this group. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Catherine's also talking about LaTeX and accessibility, which is good. And then we've got some Moodle and accessibility from Anna. Playing with LaTeX again. We're on a bit of a LaTeX bit here. This is good. Joanne's guidance for accessible open monographs. That's interesting, and kind of goes back to the previous point from Steph about accessible things. Is there anything you want to add there, or?
Hiya, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I've now got my headset on. So accessible maths doesn't feature much in there at the moment, so I'm hoping to maybe pick up some things that I might include in there. But we do get queries from publishers about LaTeX and how the main thing we're struggling with on there is that as the books are submitted in LaTeX, they look very different. So there's no one standard workflow for accessible maths. So that's what we're thinking about on our project. But there's our overall guidance if you want to take a look.
Excellent, thank you. And then Jonathan's been looking at tactile proofs.
Do you want me to say a few words, Cordelia?
Yeah, a couple of brief words might be interesting.
Okay, so I used to work at the OU as a LaTeX officer, serving rather than being a mathematician and a teacher. I got involved with some blind people, and one thing led to another, and I discovered there's a really nice tactile proof of Pythagoras, which I presented to the workshop that Joy and Lillian and Emma were at last month. And Joy's done a blog on the workshop, and I created a 48-second video that gives the tactile proof. So if you want to know that, follow the link. I've also put a couple of links in for videos that I did when I was running a weekly tech hour. One is Jonathan Godfrey, who, if you don't know, is a blind lecturer in statistics in New Zealand, and he's really very, very grateful for the RStudio tools. And there are two links there. The one is a discussion with Jonathan Godfrey, where he explains why it's important to him. He uses it not as a student, but as a teacher. So he creates materials. He doesn't just use materials. And the other is, I can't pronounce the name properly, correct, perhaps, but UEC, who is the developer behind R Markdown. So there's a couple of videos there that you might find useful and informative, and I hope you'll enjoy the tactile Pythagoras. Myself and Frank Mittelbach and David Carlisle go back many, many years, from even to the very beginnings of the LaTeX 3 project, but I won't talk about that now because it's not on topic. Is that good enough for now?
Excellent, thank you, Jonathan.
Oh, do look at the video. It's only 48 seconds.
Yeah, I'll look at that later. It sounds very interesting. And I think, yeah, I do. Interesting thinking about that kind of tactile side of stuff, that kind of accessibility beyond the digital stuff we normally talk about. Okay, and then Constantina's been doing stack stuff. And again, we're back to Beamer. Is there anything you want to add, Constantina?
Well, Charlotte emailed me about she played with Beamer and accessible slides, but I didn't have the chance to try anything. And next week is a school holiday, so I will be on leave doing mommy stuff. I just posted on chat if people hadn't realized that Anthology, Blackboard declared bankruptcy 10 days ago. And actually yesterday I was having a chat with Chris Sanguine, and I thought that was a minor issue, but he thought it's very serious. So yes, we don't know how this will evolve. We do have Moodle as well in our university, just for using Stack. So we're thinking maybe just copy everything in Moodle to have, safe copies of all the courses.
Yeah, I think that's something that I feel should be more known about, particularly if it was 10 days ago. But yes, we'll have to see what happens there. Might explain why we've not been having answers to our questions to them too. Good. And then finally, Kat, welcome to the meetings, Kat. And you're using AI to describe images and diagrams.
Yeah, I put a question mark there because I discovered it's not always right. It can be helpful, but I've realised a lot of the time it gives a very wrong answer when using it to describe like scientific graphs and things like that. So not always very helpful.
Yes. Yes, that is very true. It is either very right or very wrong.
Yeah.
Good. Hopefully that continues to improve though, and we'll find better ways of dealing with that. Okay, so that is the end of the table. Does anyone have anything else they want to add, or I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, in which case sorry, my mind's gone very blank. Does Christian want to? He's got a couple of things to say just about Quarto, kind of introduction to Quarto, and then we can have a bit of a longer discussion about Quarto. So over to Chris.
Okay, great. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Please do.
Thanks. Yeah, so I've prepared a few slides, I guess just to highlight some of the main points, and then perhaps we can have a chat as we go through. Here we go. I mean, the first thing I should say is thanks for inviting me to say a few words about Quarto. I should also say I'm not an expert in terms of accessible materials, but maybe if I talk a bit about Quarto and its features, we can tease out, the benefits for accessibility. I started using Quarto about 2 or 3 years ago, mainly for developing lab materials for teaching R and Python. But I think it's got scope for general teaching resources. So I'll give a short introduction. I'm not sure if anyone has used Quarto before or not. There were some notes about Quarto in the spreadsheet, so I won't say too much about that. I've got some example outputs just to give a feel for what Quarto can do, and then I'll talk about my experiences, and I've got 1 or 2 student quotes that might be interesting to see. Okay, so in terms of why Quarto, I think if you're looking for a system that can produce resources which interweaves text, mathematical equations, code blocks, diagrams, interactive diagrams, then I think Quarto might be useful. So it's the next generation version of R Markdown. I didn't use R Markdown, I went straight to Quarto, but my understanding is Quarto has been designed to be multilingual from the outset, whereas originally R Markdown was designed for R. And I know you could then use later other languages, but I think it's designed to be have an appeal with more languages from the beginning. So as I mentioned, it's useful creating a variety of teaching resources and also different outputs. So of course there's HTML, PDF files, PowerPoint files. But I think what's key, and I think this perhaps ties into some of the remarks that have been made in the earlier discussions, is that there's just one source file, and all you have to do is to change the output type in your source file to get different outputs from the same source file, which could come in useful for accessibility, I think. So you can also execute a variety of programming languages. So I mentioned R and Python, but also Julia, observable JavaScript, and many more. In terms of editors, I personally use RStudio still. One of my colleagues uses VS Code, but yeah, there's a variety of editors that it's compatible with. And in terms of setting it up, it's fairly straightforward. The Quarto website is very informative. There is a link there which I can share later. But there's clear step-by-step guides in terms of setting it up, and there's lots of resources there for actually creating outputs as well. Okay, so in terms of example outputs, so I won't use the link for the R teaching labs because I'm about to teach this module again and I've removed most of the content. So what I've done is I've tried to, let's have a look, get this running locally. So hopefully you can see this. So I created like a website hub where all of the lab sheets are in one place, because prior to this I was having on a VLE, lab 1 in one module, and then we move on to lab 2, and they're all in slightly different places. And the good thing about this is this is slightly more advanced, but you can create a search feature. So, if a student when revising wants to find out where we did the gamma distribution or something, then, they can just search for it here, which I think is quite useful. So of course, at the moment, I've just got lab 1 available live and no solutions because I haven't started teaching this yet, but this is what it would look like at the end of the module when we've gone through everything. If I just click on maybe one lab as an example. So hopefully you can see, you've got text, and then, we've got some tables. We've got these code blocks too, and you can decide whether you want the code blocks to be run and the output made visible in your output or not. And one feature I like is the fact that students can just hover over here and copy the code. I'll say a bit more about this later because this was one of the main features that drew me to Quarto, if I'm honest. Okay, so going back to my slides. So my ultimate aim with Quarto now is, in fact, and hopefully, can you still see this? I think hopefully you can. So what I would like to do is use Quarto to produce more general teaching resources where you can have the theory, examples, some interactive diagrams, and hopefully some quiz type questions for students to be able to kind of test themselves as they go through. So I have been experimenting with various different features, and this is something I've only just started doing. So, for example, I managed to use observable JavaScript to be able to create an interactive gamma distribution diagram where students can vary the parameters and see how this affects the shape of the distribution. And the next one is a data-driven interactive diagram, which might be more useful in statistics. So this is using RShiny Live. And of course, the benefit with RShiny Live is that you can host this on a server rather than it only working locally, as with RShiny. So, I mean, this is a very classical example with RShiny in that we can change the number of the bins and then students can see how this affects the histogram. And sorry, I just need to move this out of the way. And then finally, I've been using the exams to forms packages to see if we can embed questions into teaching resources. So for example, so here we've got a question about the chi-square distribution. So we've got 7 categories. So I think it's, yeah, so it'd be 6 degrees of freedom then. And students can check their answers. And also you can provide some more details as well, like this. So I think this has the potential to be quite useful in terms of teaching resources. And just to make the point, I created these PowerPoint slides using Quarto as well. So in terms of my experiences and accessibility, so I think perhaps the obvious things for me, but of course I think people in this group will know much more about this than me. Of course, producing the HTML outputs is more beneficial for screen readers from what I understand. But of course, with Quarto having the possibility of creating different outputs, I mean, what I do sometimes is, okay, I create the HTML output to get the interaction and to get the accessibility, but I can equally produce a PDF output so that students can have that if they want as well. And I can put this on OVLE. I think embedding the diagrams, even static or interactive, I do think that caters for different learning styles for students. So I think that's a benefit for Quarto. And for me, so I wanted to come back to this about coding. So my experience with teaching coding started with asking students to write out all of the code in a lab. And I just found that students were getting bogged down with this, or some students would, and they wouldn't be able to work very far through a lab sheet because they were spending most of their time just typing and then making small errors. And then I moved to the other extreme of providing R script files where students could just run blocks of code. And what I found with this was the other extreme, students were just running big blocks of code and not really following, what the code is actually doing. So I like this idea of, excuse me, of Quarto where you can keep a handle on these code blocks. So you can create these code blocks to contain as much or as little code as you want. So I think it then kind of forces the pace of the lab somewhat. And I found this very useful, and I think that makes coding more accessible to more students in my view. In terms of some basic recommendations, if you've not used Quarto before, what I would say is just get it working on a very basic output first before moving on to anything too advanced. And also think about where you would host. So if you want to use the HTML outputs, or where you would host this. So I'm quite lucky in that I've got access to a university server to host these outputs. Maybe think about a backup as well. Some VLEs might be more HTML friendly than others. So the one we're using doesn't seem to be able to host the websites that we're creating at the moment. But ideally they would. And the other thing is, even in the short time I've been using Quarto, it's quickly developed. And new versions get created. And I think it's important to keep up to date with the new versions and the new developments. And then finally, so student feedback. As part of a recent publication, again, there's a link to this here. I surveyed students on the Quarto outputs, and I've picked some quotes from the survey results, and in general the survey results are very positive about the outputs. And I noticed, in fact, so the second one talks about accessible, or the resource being accessible. And this is interesting because I didn't mention accessibility at all in the survey. So this is not something that I kind of led in the survey. So the students came up with this themselves, which I thought was quite interesting. And the last thing I've got is, if I open, where is it? So I've got RStudio open just in case anyone who's not used Quarto wants to see what it looks like. So I think Matt mentioned Pandoc Markdown. So this is what Quarto uses, and I've got a template file which is in fact made available with the publication I mentioned. So if anybody wants to just give Quarto a go, then this is a working file you could use if you wanted to. Yeah, so I'm happy to take any questions or start discussions about any particular part about this. I'm not sure, is that the sort of thing you were after?
Yes, no, that's I think that's quite a nice introduction for everyone. Does anyone have anything they want? Any other? I know other people have used Quarto. People. Daniel.
Hi. I've just been browsing the website as well, Quarto website as well. Am I right in thinking that you just need to install Quarto as a author, and the students need to do it, and you don't need your web server to have anything in particular?
Yeah, that's correct. So this, up until the survey, the students didn't even know I was using Quarto, because in the first year I didn't survey the students, so they were just using the outputs. So they did not need to have any interaction with Quarto. Yeah, you're right. So the Quarto is hidden, really, or if you want it to be hidden, then it is.
Okay, so from their point of view, they're just seeing regular HTML with some scripting, basically.
Yes, although in the survey I did explain that Quarto was used to produce the outputs I was surveying them on, and I did ask them whether they would be interested in using Quarto themselves, and I can't remember the exact number, but the results were mixed on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I should mention, once you install Quarto and you open RStudio, and you go to New File, then you'll see the Quarto document option. That's how you kind of get started with it.
It's useful. I'm just looking in the chat. Does Quarto have live preview when editing?
It does. So yeah, so for the latex, so for example, for this equation here, as you write it, it does preview, what the equation will look like, which is quite handy actually, because you can spot any errors then as you're writing it. And then for example, if I just want to preview this page fully, you just select render. I mean, this is a very basic output, and then it produces it. So you can run it locally within seconds.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Steph's asking, it doesn't look very accessible by default. I do know there are people actively working on improving the accessibility of Quarto, and I think, was it Matt who posted a link about someone using light and dark themes that I know are coming out. I do also know people have kind of got workarounds. I was looking at someone who had a Quarto site this week where they had PDF output and Word output and the HTML. Do you have anything to add to that?
Do you mean the accessibility of the website itself? Yeah. I mean, one thing, again, I'm not an expert in this, and I'm sure I could learn a lot. So if we look back at the website it's gone now because it's so this here is the most basic output, whereas the website I showed earlier of the lab assignments, so that's a bit more advanced in that I included a class file with some basic HTML on how I want the website to look. So I'm sure somebody who's got more experience with accessibility could adapt that file or create a more accessible class file so that the website itself is more accessible. Not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure I could learn a lot myself, in fact, about that.
Yeah, and I think there are various add-ins and additions that are being made and you can be made. Lillian, you had your hand up. Did you want to add anything or ask anything?
Oh, no, I've added it to the chat. I think Braille R, if you're running that with RStudio, then it will generate the suitable accessibility description of any diagrams that you have, and then that would output so that you've always got that description available for any screen readers as well in terms of accessibility.
Does anyone else? Josh?
Yeah, I was just gonna. So I'm using Quarto for some of my course notes as well. Switching from a little bit of a mix of different document formats, and we had the same kind of problem with VLE support with it. There was workarounds, but I think that for us at least, that was the most fiddly part of actually getting the VLE and the Quarto to integrate nicely. The actual Quarto itself was really nice to work with. Yeah. What VLE are you using, Christian?
Canvas. Which one are you using?
We're Blackboard, so it's
Blackboard,
interesting
right.
to know that that's a universal experience.
Yeah. I'm sure the technology will catch up.
Yeah.
But at least for us, it's as far as we're aware, it's not there yet. But
yeah.
That's something we can push to as a group. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, we did previously use some R Markdown as well, and it was the same kind of problem with that. So it wasn't a new problem with Quarto so much as that kind of technology issue.
Yeah, I mean the SCORM package for numbers, that works well within Canvas. Yeah, it's a shame there's not something similar for this.
Do know, and actually I see Josh just said this in the chat, that Moodle is as always is slightly better for accessibility. So but there we go. Anybody else who uses Quarto got anything else to add? Or
I mean, I'm not sure if I could ask a question to the group.
Yeah, go for it.
And this is about these coding blocks here, and what they think about this in terms of accessibility. Now, I have found the labs go much more smoothly with this because I give them one worked example where I split up these code blocks to try and force them to at least follow what's going on with that particular code block. And then I give them an exercise where they have to do their own coding, but most of the time they can just adapt the previous code. I'm just wondering what the group thinks about this in terms of accessibility. So students, they can hover over this, copy it, and then take it across.
I can jump in slightly, Christian. So there's two things I'd say. One is there's accessibility of the page itself. You see at the moment when you hover over it, it gets kind of a blue rectangle around it. I found some of these issues with tabbing through the pages don't always work brilliantly in Quarto at the moment. And I've added little hacks so it's clear to the user that there is a button there. Because for example, this button is not visible unless you hover with a mouse. Yeah. So I've written something to force it to be visible all the time so that everyone knows it's there, for example. In terms of usage, we talk about accessibility for the students, it makes it very easy for students to copy the text, paste it into their window and not even read it. So from the point of learning purposes, I have worries about this kind of thing because I've run labs this year where students just copy paste massive chunks of text and they don't learn anything because they're not actually reading the text, they're just pasting and running it, and it gives lots of errors and they don't no idea what's going on. So I don't want to make it too easy for them to just copy paste large chunks of code.
Yeah, I was worried about
this learning.
Yeah, I was worried about this too, which is why I'd make sure there was exercises after each example where they would have to change enough of the code to be able to understand it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's always a tricky thing of kind of balancing for it from a teaching point of view too. Christian raises a point that Quarto is an open source project, so we can send stuff to them and say, here is a code that makes your buttons always visible or things. And hopefully that could help them push things through. We've got about 3 minutes left, so does anyone else have anything else to add to about Quarto? No, okay. In which case, I also want to advertise as always, because I think it's really helpful for those people who've used it, the Learning Technologists subgroup. So if you are a new learning technologist and you would like a bit of support and mentoring, there is a little subgroup that can help with that. And I'm just finding the link to a form you can fill in, which can then you join the other learning mentorists. So if that's something you're interested in, sorry, Lillian,
Joshua and I helped to run this group, and Kat, I think it's coming along to that next week. It's for people who don't do much of the maths directly. We come from other backgrounds, so we wrangle with what we need to do to communicate accessible maths to the maths and stats people.
Excellent. So if that would be of interest to you, please do join in. It's always good to have more people and to learn new stuff. In other news, you may have noticed that A, Luke is off on paternity leave, so congratulations to Luke, and B, this group is getting quite large, so I would quite like a co-chair, please, because I would also quite like to run the introductory seminars that we talked about in the last meeting, so getting some on a range of issues, so an introduction to LaTeX, an introduction to dissemination. I think that's important, and I have had people say that would be useful to them, but I frankly do not have the time. So if anyone would be interested in becoming co-chair of the group, it is not too much work, and it will be even less work if we're sharing. Please do get in touch and see what we can do. Hopefully, if time permits, I might even send a newsletter out next week with news of this meeting and more. Okay, we have about a minute left. I see people are already going. Does anyone else have any questions? Matt?
I was just going to say, if I can have 30 seconds to show what I'm working on in case there's any interest in it. Otherwise, another session is also fine as well. But I can give you a blip of my summer in.
I see lots of people are leaving. I'm slightly tempted to give you a proper block next time. But if people want to hang around for a quick, 3-minute preview, maybe we could do that now. I'm seeing some nods. So maybe let's have a 3-minute preview, and we'll also have a bigger section next time to see what you're working on. But if you need to leave, thank you for leaving. Thank you for coming. And we'll see you next time.
Then I'll just give a very quick demo of some things I've been working on. You'd have seen the list in the document before. One was this kind of open router where you can, it's a front end where you can use lots of different LLMs. And if I just go down to the very bottom, you can drop in your API key if you have one there. But this is what I started on in January, and with the aim of trying to make it as accessible as possible. So you can add files, you can have streaming of responses, set different things like temperature and so on. And then I was working on the responses and converting the markdown responses to work in as accessible ways as possible. And of course, LLMs are great at generating diagrams in Mermaid and GraphJS. So then I started looking at how could you algorithmically generate long descriptions and short descriptions of charts and graphs. So here's an example with a graph. And also having color vision deficiency friendly palettes. So there's a few famous ones, Portal, Okabe and Ito, IBM Design Library, and so on. And if I go to my other tab, the Markdown editor, where I was testing different types of graph, you can see it's also got pattern fills and so on as well. And the descriptions aren't generated using AI. The descriptions are generated just using JavaScript. Like, it's basically what's going on in this graph and what's the main takeaway is the short description, and the detailed description is kind of classical how you ought to list or write the description of a graph. Like, what's the construction, any key insights, and a list of data points, as well as a data table, which of course you have your standard being able to sort by different columns and so on. Then I showed that to Alistair McNaught, who said, oh, you should make a generator. So I've been making a generator so you can create those graphs. You could enter data. So I was toying with, should we do it as a table? But I thought from an accessibility point of view, I'm going to try having a much more complex, simple way of presenting it. So then you can just clicking through, and then you've got your graph with the automatically generated description. And then the last thing, just what I just started on, the second to last thing what I started on was working with MathPix API. Maybe I need to, have I not set? Well, then I need to work out why that isn't working. But if I go back, hopefully, you've got the draw mode, which can process far too many notifications still in development, but you'll get the MathJax preview and then the results in different formats and so on. And the last was playing with Pandoc WASM. So that's a WebAssembly version of Pandoc, LaTeX on the left, rendered content on the right. Thanks to Lillian Cordelia's feedback, kind of realized, oh, you need to allow scroll bars because the length of LaTeX is a lot longer than the rendered result. I've been slowly working my way through different aspects of LaTeX syntax, trying to, Cordelia sent me one of her example documents, so I was able to find what wasn't working. And I've been slowly throwing in examples so I can try to get everything going as much as I can, and then to export as a HTML file. Oh, I think this is because I need to, of course, when I'm trying to show something live. So if I just redo the last refresh, and then the last thing I'll show you is, hopefully this will work this time. All right, then I'd have to fire it up from my virtual studio to show you a longer time, but can have it in as an HTML or as a SCORM package with various accessibility features. And of course, I didn't test beforehand, but we've got the MathJax and so on. And one of the things that I was really fiddling with working on is, and there's all the errors I'm going to find out in a moment. The last thing I can say is, if I go back to inspect element, or if I can find it, it's easier if I tell you rather than show you, is getting the LaTeX annotations added into the markup, and other aspects, the assistive MML, basically as much as possible, and squirting that into the exports so that as much as possible is already in there without having to rely on too much online capability to show. But a better demo next time. I just thought I'd show you quickly because you're the few people that will understand what I'm trying to do. And thank you very much for your time. Sorry to run over.
No, thank you. That was, I feel like, a good advert for the next meeting. So hopefully people will come along next time too. Right. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything else to add or else? I think we can go and maybe have some lunch or something. Okay, thank you all for coming today. I feel like it's been a really good meeting. So thank you for coming and see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.